Welcome into the show, everyone. Christian Jackson here with special guest Steve Merrick. He is our Nebraska expert today, writes for Nebraska Rivals. Steve, thank you for being here with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Christian.
So, Nebraska ball, winners of the college basketball crown. I know it's become a meme a bit of college basketball Twitter, but it means something to win basketball games in March. And you lose some key pieces, of course, like Bryce Williams, but you get a healthy Reink Mast. You make some other interesting additions. So, kind of entering this season, how do you feel about just the temperature of the program and what was Fred's approach to this offseason?
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Crown Tournament, and it's easy. It's easy to kind of look back at that and make the jokes and everything, and of course it's there. But considering how the team ended the regular season, they missed the Big Ten tournament. Only 15 teams got to play in it last year, not all 18. And so they ended on a real it was a lackluster end. They lost a lot of games to finish out the year, and it was really kind of depressing around here. But they go to that tournament and they win the thing. And I think that for the people inside of the program, for the players, not necessarily like Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary, who that was their last game in a Husker uniform, but the guys coming back, I think that kind of showed everyone like, yeah, we can still be a good team. We needed to end on a high note, and they did. And so they kind of took that momentum, and I think they used it. Fred and his coaching staff used it on the recruiting trail in the offseason, and they went out and they attacked the portal like they're going to do every single year. High school recruiting these days is getting less important every single year. Nebraska is 100%, committed to finding and retooling a roster through the transfer portal while taking, a freshman or two each year. But yeah, they went out and got a lot of new pieces. There's 8 newcomers on the roster, and the clear emphasis, in my opinion, that Fred was looking like inject some perimeter shooting to the roster. And so they went out and got shooters and shooters to surround Reink Mast with on the court. And so it's going to look a lot different offensively for Nebraska.
I want to start with this scrimmage against BYU, where obviously Reink Mast returns to action and it looks extremely impressive the way he's shooting the basketball and moving on the block and doing everything that he does. I want to get into this roster kind of one by one, but any just takeaways about how that shooting, the look to it, how that shooting kind of looked in that first live action?
I think what I said with the plan going into the offseason is like get to be a better shooting team. I mean, it was only an exhibition, but it was against a quality opponent. With preseason number 8 BYU, Kevin Young bringing his Cougars into PBA and Lincoln with AJ DeBonta and all that hype. But I think Reink Mast kind of came away with the spotlight of that game because he scored a game high 31 points. He went 7 of 8. He made his first 7 threes. I don't think anybody really expected to see, what played out from Reink Mast, considering the knee surgery over a year ago that kept him out all of last season. For him to step on the court for the first time in his first real kind of competitive game action against somebody who isn't his teammate, I mean, that's a really cool thing that he did. And so I think it just kind of like speaks to, how important Reink Mast is going to be for one. And then just the others who chipped in too. Like Connor Essegian came off the bench and scored 20 points. He made 5 threes. He was looking really good. And the new faces were also kind of contributing in ways to Price Sanford from Iowa, who we'll talk about later. But he came up, he started the game and made 2 threes. So yeah, they were wheeling and dealing. They were running up and down the court. They were shooting threes. They were playing a fun brand of basketball. And now the defensive end is going to be another story that we can talk about later. But I think the win over BYU kind of showed the vision of Fred's team of what he wanted it to be this season and what he did in the offseason by injecting some shooting into the roster and kind of leaning heavily on Reink Mast to, be that stretch 5 that clears out the lane for back cuts, just like 2 seasons ago when Keisei Tominaga, everybody talks about Keisei Tominaga's 3-point, his ability to hit threes. And that's true. He was electric at that, but he also did a really good job of back cutting and getting into the lane and kind of making defenses that over pursue pay with easy layups. So I think that's kind of going to be the vision for Nebraska this season, and try to replicate what happened 2 seasons ago when they made the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, with that offensive scheme and Mast as just that kind of offensive hub is just really opens things up. And, when Nebraska made the tournament as a 9 seed, his last healthy season in 2024, 12 points, 8 boards, 3 assists per game.
Mm-hmm.
He looks fully healthy to me from that scrimmage. How excited is this staff for what Mast can do in year 5? Is there like a huge jump from that 12 points that could be in store here?
Well, I don't know about that because there's so many shooters that they're going to be surrounding him with. And so I think he's not going to be going into the game thinking, I need to score X amount of points. I need this X amount of threes per game. I don't think it works like that. But, I think they're really going to be, I think Fred is going to be depending on him to put the ball in his hands at the top of the key or the elbow or something like that. And just like facilitate, let the offense go, let the screens and the schemes to get guys open, let that play out. And he's really good at finding the open man, distributing the ball to the hot hand. That's a big thing that Fred always talks about is if there is a player who knocks down a shot or gets 2 in a row, get in the ball game, see what he can do. Have fun with it and let this team go and see what happens. And so I think, like you said, with Reink Mast being the offensive hub, I just think that that's going to be the big plan this year is get the ball in his hands and go to work. And, I wouldn't be surprised if he leads the team in assists like he did 2 seasons ago. But yeah, he looked healthy for his first game action back. It's the first time we saw him as media members. There were some sloppy moments I'd say with ball security, but again, it's his first time back. I mean, that stuff's going to get cleaned up with more minutes that he plays. But I think he played a lot of minutes. I forget how much, but he looked good. The shot just looks excellent. And so he really spent some time maybe working on that shot when he couldn't work on anything else last offseason. But Reink Mast looked really, really good. And they're going to be depending on him to be good and distribute the basketball and be that stretch big and kind of just be everything for the team, honestly, a leader that does everything.
There's a lot of ways I can go with this next player. I'm going to say Connor Sejan, though, because he's a guy who just really jumped off the page when he was a freshman at Wisconsin, then just fell off the face of the earth that next year and then got his mojo back last year, looked great in the scrimmage. He's just dangerous as a movement shooter. What kind of progression? Is there a progression in store for him in terms of just expanding that offensive game or becoming a better defender? What do you expect from Connor Sejan here this season?
Yeah, so Connor Sejan is going to be very important as well. I expect him to come off the bench. I think that's where he's at his most dangerous when he's coming off the bench. He could be a starter, I guess, but I think he's more comfortable coming off the bench. And I think Fred likes that about him, to come off the bench and have a 3-point threat, right out there, ready to get going. But yeah, he scored 20 points against BYU. He went 5 of 10 from 3. He showed a lot of good things. The thing with Connor Sejan, in my opinion, is consistency. We all know that he can make those threes and those splash threes, those big plays, those momentum shifting plays from behind the arc. But there were times last year where he didn't do it consistently enough. There were stretches where he wasn't shooting a good percentage at all. And then something would happen and then he would be shooting a good percentage. And it would just ebb and flow throughout the season like that. I think you want to see Connor Sejan this year become more consistent, more dependable from behind the arc. And then, at the end of the day, he is working on being more of a well-rounded offensive player. I mean, he did some good things inside of the arc against BYU, attacking the basket. I think he had a few assists where he attacked the basket, got his defender in the air, and then dumped it off to a post player like Berke Bieptengel for a layup. And so there are flashes of him being a more all-around offensive player. But at this point, I think he's just at his best when he's behind the arc and he's, threatening defenses with that shot of his, because when it's on, it looks really good and he can really hurt defenses. Defense, again, he's a 3-point shooter. And I think, there were some moments against BYU where he got defensively. And that's always going to, for all of Nebraska's team, I think it needs to work on defense. I don't know how that side end of the court is going to go for this team this year. But defense, I think, is just a continuing thing with Connor Sejan, as it is with a lot of players on the team.
Another guy in that mold, Price Sanford, coming over from the sorry Iowa defense, but of course a sniper, 40% from deep, playing with his brother at Iowa. We know what he brings to the table offensively, but is there another leap for him in store? And then obviously defensively, there are some concerns.
Yeah. So again, the defense, he needs to show improvement there, just like everybody, just like I said. But yeah, Price Sanford is just adding another shooter to surround Reink Mast with. That was the plan with going and getting him and making him a Husker. The next step for him, I think, Fred has talked about Price Sanford becoming not just a three-point shooter. Like we think of Connor Essegian as just a three-point shooter. I think some people might think of Price Sanford as just a three-point shooter. I think everybody in Nebraska's program wants to see Price kind of do what Connor is doing and attempting to be a more well-rounded offensive player and attacking the hoop and doing some work inside of the arc. And so that's just another example. I kind of put Price Sanford and Connor Essegian into the same pot where, you know, we all know that what they can do behind the arc, but you know, what can they do inside of the arc and how can they help the offense, you know, in 2-point land. So that's going to be another step for him is, you know, how that works. And again, like I said, all of this kind of depends on Reink Mast and how he kind of facilitates the offense at the top of the key. Because if he's dragging that opposing big out of the paint, it's going to open up so much more possibilities for this offense because it just didn't have that luxury last year. I mean, defenses just like crowded the paint. They put a lot of bodies in there because they weren't afraid of getting burned by the 3-pointer. I mean, Nebraska shot like as a team 31% last year against Big Ten competition. It's just not good enough. The defenses weren't afraid to get burned out there, so they just like hung back by the rim and defended the paint as they should have. So, you know, as of right now, it looks like Nebraska is going to be doing a better job with that. And if defenses do try to defend the paint and kind of pack the paint, they're going to get burned because there's so many shooters on the court surrounding Reink Mast.
So, because of so many shooters surrounding Reink Mast, which is so different from last year. Yes. But different this year is you don't have Bryce Williams and a guy who can kind of put the ball on the floor, create for himself. Is there a guy that stands out to you as a guy who can be that? You got Jamarcus Lawrence coming back after a year at URI, Kendall Blue in from St. Thomas, and some other characters on the bench we haven't gotten to yet. Does anyone kind of jump out as who is the most pressure on them to kind of handle the ball in those situations when Reink's off the floor or when it's not working?
Yeah, so that's a good point. And it's a point that Fred was asked about this offseason when looking at this roster. It's like, who is that Bryce Williams type player with the shot clock running down? You need to find your playmaker, get the ball to him and see what he can do. I'm not sure that the team knows that yet. And I'm not sure that, you know, last year it was so Bryce Williams heavy dominant of a team where like we said, there wasn't as much 3-point shooting, but they'd had a dog in Bryce Williams. So you get him the ball and let him go to work. I'm not sure that that's the offensive game plan this year. I think it's going to be a lot more of a movement offense with a lot of shooters on the court and going to work that way. But yeah, if the shot clock is ticking down right now and and the ball has to find a playmaker, I'd have to say maybe Jamarcus Lawrence right now. He's maybe the most athletic with the ball in his hands and he can do some things in that way. But yeah, I'm not sure the team knows that right now. And I think that's going to be kind of a developing thing throughout the season of, you know, we need to find our guy like in those situations. Cause I'm not sure Reink Mast is going to be that guy. I'm not sure like Berke Buchtenschel is going to be that guy or Connor Essegian doesn't really seem to be that guy. Maybe there's some potential with Braden Frager, who we should talk about. He's a redshirt freshman who redshirted last year, didn't play at all. But he's going to bring a lot to this team, I think, especially defensively, which they need. Braden Frager is 6'7", 220-pounder from nearby Southwest High School in Lincoln. So he's a really athletic kid. But again, it's going to be his first season, you know, playing ball. Actually after redshirting last year. So, you know, he's got a lot to learn and going to have a lot on his shoulders. But yeah, I think finding a Bryce Williams type go-to player is still in the works right now. But again, you know, Fred has said this offense is going to be different from last season's where, you know, they're not going to rely on that so heavily like they did last year.
Is there any lore to Jamarcus coming back to Nebraska after URI? Is he just like homies with Reink Mast and he's like, come play with me again? Or it
was, you know, these days with the transfer portal and people in your ear telling you different things of what they think you should do, what you think you should do, you know, whatever happened. I mean, he left and then he decided to come back and, you know, Nebraska is glad to have him because I think he's going to be a better player. I think he learned some lessons last year at Rhode Island and that whole thing. The grass isn't always greener type situation that you always hear about. But yeah, Nebraska is glad to have him back. He's glad to be back. He's glad to, play in a packed arena every night. He's glad to play for a head coach like Fred Hoiberg. He's glad to play with teammates that he used to play with. And I think him and Reink and Mast are a good duo. I'm excited to see how they work together. It looked pretty good 2 seasons ago when they made the NCAA tournament. And yeah, I think Jamarcus Russell is really going to bring a lot to this team, especially as a ball handling type guard, because, in Fred's system, he always says he doesn't really necessarily need a true point guard. That the ball handling responsibilities can be done by several different players on the court. But with Jamarcus Russell, I mean, that's as close as you're going to get to a point guard.
You're talking about number 1 overall pick NFL, Jamarcus
Oh my
Russell.
gosh. Did I say Russell? Jamarcus Lawrence.
I'm going to keep that in because
no, I've actually done that multiple times before, and I hate myself for that. But yeah, Jamarcus Lawrence. Yeah, he's the closest thing you're going to get to a point guard in Fred Hoiberg's system, and I think they needed that. They didn't have one last year, really. Again, it was just finding the ball and getting the ball to Bryce Williams' hands. But this year with Jamarcus Lawrence, there's just going to be more options, I guess, to get the ball in his hands and let him go coast to coast. Because I think it's fun watching Jamarcus Lawrence because he's so fast with the ball in his hands. I think he's the fastest guy on the team, probably, and side to side with the ball in his hands. He can move. So he's learning to be a point guard, but I think he's going to be the best thing that you have, and the best bet to maybe act like that true point guard.
I saw a quote from, I think it was Jamarcus, saying, I think Cale Jacobson deserves to be the point guard, who didn't really play at all until the crown. And I think he started against BYU. Has he just kind of come out of nowhere as a guy that could be a key part of this rotation?
Yes. Yes. So Cale Jacobson, another local guy, he's from Ashland Greenwood High School in Nebraska. He came to the program as a walk-on. Everybody likes him. He's a coach on the court. His basketball IQ is really, really high. Fred said he's just acts like a coach at practice. He knows the positions and what everything and what all the positions are expected to do. He's just a very, very smart kid. 6'4", around 200 pounds. He can play multiple positions himself. He can do a little ball handling. He can defend multiple positions a little bit, but so he actually started the BYU exhibition, and that kind of surprised a lot of people, surprised a lot of media members that cover the program. But again, he can just do so much on the court, and I think Fred likes that about him. And so he got the start against BYU. That doesn't mean he's going to start the second exhibition against Midland University, which is coming up here. Fred said that in a press conference, but the BYU opportunity for Cale was, I think, good, just to, get an opportunity, get on the court, and have Fred see what you can do with who we think is going to be the starter. So Jamarcus Lawrence, Rick Mast, Berkay Buchtenjel, Price Sanford, and then that kind of fourth spot was open a little bit, and Cale got that opportunity against BYU. So Cale, I think, is going to play. Jacobson is going to play. He had an excellent crown tournament after, like you said, not playing much during the regular season. Once that crown tournament hit, he was like doing everything for the team, and he was a spark. He was scoring. He was distributing the ball. He was playing some defense, getting rebounds. He was just kind of doing it all. He's just a good guy to have out there. So we're going to see a lot from Cale Jacobson, I think. I think his role will maybe shift throughout the season potentially, but I think he's going to get some minutes, and he's earned them. He's been there for a while. He's worked his butt off, and like I said, everybody likes him, and he's a smart kid, so he's earned this opportunity.
There's a lot of guys that could potentially factor in here. I'm looking at the roster, and there's some guys that we haven't talked about. Kind of just going through quickly here. Kendall Blue coming over for St. Thomas. Obviously, shooter, St. Thomas, 3 years there. St. Thomas, a pretty good team. What's kind of the pitch on him? So, yeah, Kendall Blue. I was excited about Kendall Blue. Great size for the guard at 6'6", 200 pounds. Coming out of the Summit League, like you said, good basketball is played in the Summit League at St. Thomas especially too. So he can shoot over 40% three-point shooter. He can do some ball handling too. So he's going to play. He's going to be part of the rotation. But is he going to start? I don't know. He's going to need to show, I think, that he is up for the physicality of the Big Ten.
The Big Ten is not the Summit League, especially physically. The players are going to be bigger, faster, stronger than he has ever played against in college. So his transition to, putting up with that physicality and can he be effective against bigger, stronger players like he was against, opponents that when he played for St. Thomas? I mean, that has yet to be known, but I think he's going to help out a lot off the bench and potentially be another ball handler with maybe that second unit on the court.
Berke comes from UCLA, plays for Nebraska last year. A stretch big in theory, but shot 27%. Is there better shooting in store for him? And then defensively, I feel like he's a pretty crucial piece here if he's going to be starting at the 4.
Berke is really, really important as well. Yes. So he did not have the season that I think everybody was expecting last year. Like you said, he came over from UCLA. Again, I think the transition from where he was playing to Big Ten basketball and what that takes physically was kind of a surprise and just a learning experience for him. The big thing with him is he got injured. He rolled his ankle pretty badly late in the year. I think it was against Maryland when they beat Maryland in PBA. I think it was that. But and that knocked him out for a few games. He came back and he just was not the same. He was playing really good basketball, but then he got injured. He came back and he just was not the same. He could not make threes. I think he made like only one out of, I don't know, his next 20 attempts. It was bad. But the big thing with Berke this offseason was his conditioning. He came in to Nebraska last year after UCLA, not in good condition. He wasn't good enough in the conditioning area. So he went to work this offseason and he looks better. Physically, he looks better. And that's what needed to happen to get him in shape. And when he's in shape, he can stay on the court longer. He's more strong and physical. He can maybe sustain something like the injury that happened to him against Maryland. So that him getting in better shape and being able to stay on the court is going to make him a better basketball player. Now, you're right. He is really he showed a lot of good things defensively. When he's on the court, Nebraska is a better defensive team. And so that's going to be very crucial this year because I'm not sure how the defense is going to go this year with him out there. It's going to be better because I think he can do a lot of things. He can cover all sorts of bigs and hold his own against smaller players, I think, too. But again, you mentioned he came in as kind of that stretch big, but he didn't show it. He didn't look like it. So he needs to be more consistent with that 3-point shot. We know it's in him. Like us media members, we go to practice. Like I'm watching Berke Buchengel and he's swishing threes all over the place. Like he can shoot the ball, but it just hasn't translated to games. And so that's just the next step for him is, can you shoot like you do at practice in games when it matters and counts? That's going to be absolutely crucial for him because if he can, he just makes himself an even better basketball player.
The next guy I have to ask you about is a really interesting profile that I dug into. I wasn't watching much Central Michigan last year, of course, but Ugnias Jerusev, I don't even want to try, but from Lithuania, this dude, 2 years at Cal State Bakersfield, doesn't play. I'm not sure if he was injured, but was just kind of in and out of the lineup. And then last year at the end of the season, just went absolutely nuclear, just putting up huge point totals, a couple of 30 burgers. Who is this guy? Is that real? And how excited is the program about him?
Good thing about his last name is you don't have to say it much. You just call him Oogie, like everybody at Nebraska calls him Oogie. So yeah, Oogie, 6'11", 245, 250 pounds. He can move. He can shoot. He's got a nice little post game. He's got a little dog in him, I think, mentally. He can get under some skin. Like I watched some games of his at Central Michigan, and he at times he can get under the skin of whoever's guarding him. And I like that about a player sometimes. Throw them off their game a little bit. He's got a little bit of that in him. But yeah, he's going to be big too. Because Reink Mast, I don't know what they're planning to do with him and his minutes, and if he's going to be maybe restricted and trying to just play a certain amount of minutes, at least to start the season, just to ease him into the Big Ten grind and things like that. Oogie's going to be very important as well because he can play that 4, that 5. I'm interested to see in how well he's going to shoot threes because he's shown flashes of doing it when he was playing with the Chippewas, but consistency, it wasn't quite there. So Oogie is going to be a very important big, I think, in Nebraska's rotation. I don't think he's going to start, but I think he's going to be one of the first bigs off the bench, him and Jared Garcia maybe. But Ugi's going to be very, very important because he can do a little bit of everything, I think. He's got a nice little post game, like I said. I think he's tough enough and he has a mindset to compete in the Big Ten, but that's going to be another thing. Going from the MAC to the Big Ten, there's just a difference in basketball there. So we'll see how he handles that. But with his mindset of what I think his mindset is, I think he's going to do fine.
Sam Hoiberg, we obviously know what he is at this point. Energy off the bench, knows everything he needs to do, coach's son.
Can shoot some threes sometimes.
Yeah, of course. 36% from deep last year. Whether it's Jared Garcia or any of these other guys, what other key guys that could be in this rotation have we not touched on?
So Jared Garcia, older guy, veteran, spent the past 2 seasons, I believe, at Tulsa and was around different programs before that. I think he started at Charlotte. But yeah, so Jared Garcia is another one. He's coming off a foot sprain right now, but he did play against BYU. So that's important just to get him out there. So 6'8", 240 pounds. He's strong and he's athletic. I think he can get up a little bit. And so that's what this team is missing. I think Jared Garcia defensively is going to be a key out there just because, like I said, I don't know how this defense is going to shape up, but having somebody like Jared Garcia, a tough old guy, I think you need those in the Big Ten. And Jared Garcia is tough and old, and he's got a little bit of athleticism to him too. So he made a 3 against BYU off an assist from a drive from Braden Frager. So that was good to see too, that he can knock down some shots as well. So I don't think Jared Garcia is going to be leaned on heavily as like a starter, but potential first guy or first big off the bench potential there for sure.
The Big Ten is just such a monster, and
and you need guys. Yeah, you need guys that are okay with the physicality of it, because it can get really tough down there, and you don't need soft guys. You need tough-minded muscle guys. So to compete in those areas and grab rebounds. And rebounding is going to be important too, because BYU was just grabbing all the rebounds, and so Jared Garcia, Reink, Mast, Berke Buchtengel, Ugi, those are going to be important guys for grabbing those rebounds.
Yeah, it's a battle on the interior, but I also just love that. I think it was very smart of Hoiberg and the staff to really just lean into building around Reink, Mast and making this offense as good as possible, because at least when Big Ten teams come and face Nebraska, right? Like it's going to be there's not many teams playing like them in this league of just thriving off that spacing and that movement and having this hub where everything goes through. Like maybe Illinois comes to mind, but like I just think Nebraska is going to pose a lot of problems. And if the defense can elevate, I feel like we kind of know what to expect out of this team offensively. Like they're going to be hard to guard. Of course, you're not going to shoot it well every night, but if defensively you can get some contributions off the bench and just elevating and just playing together as a unit, that's where this team becomes a tournament team once again.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can touch on Braden Frager, because I think Braden Frager is going to be part of the rotation, and we haven't talked about him yet. But you want to stick with Braden? Yeah,
tell me about Braden.
Yeah, so Braden Frager, like I mentioned before, local kid at a Southwest high school in Lincoln, 6'7", 220 pounds, super athlete. He's a really good athlete. He can jump out of the gym. He can shoot the ball. He can defend. He can defend multiple positions. He's going to dive on the court. Remember what Juwan Gary was for Nebraska for a couple seasons? Braden Frager has that in him. He's got some dog in him. He'll dive on the court. He'll do the gritty stuff. He'll do the things that don't necessarily show up in the stat book, but when you watch him, he impacts the game. And he impacted the game on multiple occasions against BYU with his defense, with his rebounding, drawing fouls, just being tough and gritty. Nebraska's defense needs that, and he provides that. So he might even be starter this year. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
But he's going to come off the bench. And Fred talked about during his redshirt season last year, they thought about pulling it and playing him during a losing streak in the mid-season. Like Fred just wanted a spark to change something up, and he thought Frager was going to be that guy. But they ultimately just started winning. Like I said, the season was up and down. So they went through some losing stretches, they went through some winning stretches, and Frager just ultimately sat on the bench and continued his redshirt year. But Braden Frager is going to be an important part of this basketball team, and not a lot of people know about him. So I think that works to his advantage, and I think he's going to surprise some people with athleticism and some of the things he does on the defensive end of the court. The offensive part might take some time. I mean, he's just a very young kid. He reclassified as a high schooler. Like last year, he should have been a high school senior, but he was with the team in college. So he's super young and all of that. But he can do some things, and he's going to help the team this year. He's going to be absolutely a part of the rotation.
Appreciate you putting me on to that deep name, of course. And thanks for just breaking down Nebraska basketball. I think it's going to be a fun season. So appreciate your time, Steve.
Thank you, Christian.